I never imagined I'd find myself in a position where I was keeping track of my wife's reasons for withdrawing, rather than counting the moments of connection between us. Yet there I was, sitting on the edge of our bed, listening as she recited a list of 10 explanations for why she no longer wanted any physical closeness. She'd even written them down on a notepad. The first was exhaustion. The second was shifting hormones. The third was that I didn't do enough around the house. One after another, she laid out her justifications, each one steadily dismantling whatever traces of intimacy remained. I didn't interrupt or challenge her. Over time, I had learned that staying silent often reveals more than any response. What stood out was how detached she seemed, as if this shift in our relationship was simply a practical adjustment, like renegotiating terms between roommates rather than addressing the erosion of a marriage. When she finished, she looked at me, expecting some kind of reply. I asked only one question. "Is this a permanent change?" She shrugged. "I just don't feel that way anymore, Chris. Maybe it will come back eventually, but right now, can't we just exist without all that?" The idea of settling for mere coexistence struck deeper than any argument we had ever had. That kind of detachment belonged between acquaintances, not between two people who had promised each other their lives. I nodded without protest. "All right," I said evenly. "You have your 10 reasons. I'll consider what mine should be. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming stories and updates here on the channel." That night, I lay awake, reviewing the years I had spent trying to sustain our connection. Preparing meals, offering gestures of care, attempting conversations that went nowhere where it became clear that I'd been investing in something that had already faded. Love without mutual effort becomes a quiet form of disloyalty. The following morning, I began implementing my own set of 10 responses, not as retaliation, but as a way to reclaim my self-respect. I left for work without any of the small rituals I had maintained for years. No goodbye kiss, no offer to make coffee, no questions about what she might need during the day. I simply withdrew my availability. When I returned that evening, I began with the first change. For years, I had shouldered the everyday responsibilities: shopping, handling bills, making repairs, even maintaining her car, without acknowledgement. That night, when she mentioned the dripping kitchen faucet, I responded simply, "Put it on your list." The second step followed naturally. I stopped providing emotional support as a default. When she needed to unload about frustrations from her day, I listened without offering comfort, advice, or reassurance. I let her words pass without taking them on, mirroring the way she had long treated my attempts to connect. The third change was the hardest. I ceased all efforts to reach out. No morning messages, no casual touches as I moved through the house. The resulting quiet was stark, but it lacked the isolating chill of her indifference. Within days, she noticed the shift. By the end of the week, she asked why I had become so distant. I replied calmly, "You wanted a more comfortable arrangement. I'm simply adjusting to that." What had once been an exhausting pursuit of her attention became a deliberate choice to establish limits. I redirected my energy toward my own well-being. Returning to the gym, spending time with friends, finding reasons to be outside the house, my focus no longer automatically included her. When she confronted me weeks later, her voice unsteady, she said she felt as though I was punishing her. I met her gaze and responded without hesitation. "I'm not punishing you. I'm giving you exactly what you requested. A relationship without intimacy. That realization struck her fully because intimacy extends beyond physical contact. It requires consistent effort, attention, and emotional presence, all of which she had systematically withheld. As the changes continued, she made attempts to re-engage, preparing meals, inquiring about my day, even wearing a fragrance I had once complimented. But I did not reward those efforts with a return to old patterns. When she reached for my hand during a meal, I allowed the gesture without reciprocating, continuing as if it had not occurred. For the first time, uncertainty replaced her usual assurance. When she suggested planning a weekend together, I told her I had already made arrangements with friends. The surprise on her face revealed how accustomed she had become to being the center of my world. Later, when others asked about our situation, I stopped covering for her with vague reassurances. I simply stated that we were sorting things out, allowing her to face the reality of her own behavior without protection. Eventually, she came to me visibly shaken, admitting she felt invisible. I looked at her directly and said, "That's exactly how I felt for years. The difference is, I continued showing up regardless." She pleaded for a chance to make things right, promising changes, better communication, renewed effort, even professional help. Things I had requested long before she began cataloging her reasons for distance. But by then, I had reached my 10th and final response: independence. I told her I was moving out, that I needed time apart to rediscover myself outside the role of endlessly seeking her regard. When she tried to embrace me, I stepped back gently. "You made a list explaining why you could no longer be close to me. Now you have the space to live with that decision." I packed my things and left without confrontation or raised voices, only a sense of resolution. Weeks later, she contacted me, acknowledging what she had lost. But by that point, I had come to understand a fundamental truth. Sometimes a relationship does not collapse amid conflict or resentment. It simply ends when one person stops trying to hold it together alone.